I'd like to welcome everybody to this TPSE Math Department Chairs webinar. My name is Michael Dorff. I'm the Executive Director of TPSE Math right now. And just to clear up, make sure everyone understands this, you don't have to be a department chair to participate in this, but this initially started because of topics that we find department chairs are interested in. And that's kind of the impetus for the topics that we choose on this one. But you could be a wannabe department chair or a not wannabe department chair. Perfectly fine. Today we're gonna talk about this topic about expanding careers for math majors and graduate students. A lot of interest in that, a lot of discussion going on. So that's what we're interested in. Maybe just before we get into that, before we get into panel introductions, I want to just give a little brief plug about what is TPSE Math. For those people maybe who have not participated in anything that TPSE has done before, or kind of wondering what's this wacky acronym that we use for TPSE Math. TPSE Math represents or connotes transforming post-secondary education in mathematics. And Cassie put in the link there in the chat for the website. We have lots of different projects that we're doing. They include a Leadership Institute training faculty members in the math and stats community to be future leaders in the mathematics community. We have a DEI effort that we're working on. We have some data science programs and non-academic career track, and we have some programs that talk about teaching practices, best teaching practices, and alternate pathways into mathematics. And we have one other group we call the MAGs, which are special interest groups. And if you're interested in that's a great thing to join, where you can get involved with TPSE, and you can do it at a small amount of time or a large amount of time, just depending on how you want to do that. So with that, we're going to start with this webinar. Again, the topic is expanding careers for math majors and graduate students, which I'm sure you all know because otherwise you wouldn't be here. We're going to now have each of the four panelists give a short introduction, 3 to 5 minutes, about themselves and say something about this topic. And then after we do that, after all four panelists go through with that, we're going to have 2 breakout sessions. These breakout sessions will be 15 minutes each. You self-select which breakout session you want to go to. The 4 breakout sessions will be each one of the panelists, and they will then either do a Q&A, or they can talk about their particular topic or whatever they're going to do there. We'll do that. We'll have 1 breakout session for 15 minutes. Then we'll come back and we'll have a second breakout session for another 15 minutes, and then we'll all come back and then close up. And this should be within the hour. So great. So we're going to go with Talitha Washington first, then Fidel Santosa, and then Sarah Olson, and then I will do the last panel intro.
All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Talitha Washington, and I am the director of the Atlanta University Center Data Science Initiative. And I'm going to put a link to our place in the chat, virtual place. So we do data science across 4 historically Black colleges and universities down here in Atlanta, Georgia. They're co-located, different schools though. Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College. I'm also a professor of mathematics at Clark Atlanta, and I'm an affiliate at the other 3. And so we've been busy thinking about how to engaging with industry friends, we'll call them, to bring in some development, and also to bootstrap up at how we're thinking about academics as the data science is moving rather quickly in industry. How do we bring that in? How do we position our students, train them up, and do it in an academic way, because we are not career services. So I'll probably, my talkings will be around that and how we work with the 4 schools in that endeavor. And I'm also the president of the Association for Women in Mathematics. and a certified dance instructor. So I'll leave it at that.
So, am I next?
Go for it.
Okay, well, I don't think I can top you, Talisa. So my name is Fidel Santosa. I'm department head at Johns Hopkins University's Department of Applied Mathematics and Statistics. Most recently with Rick Laugeson at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, we started this sort of regional networks for internships for PhD students in mathematics. So there's a network in the Midwest around UIUC, and then there's another one around Johns Hopkins here in the Mid-Atlantic. We draw students from about, in my case, about 7 other universities nearby, and we provide training in preparation for internships. And we also have professionals who develop internships with small companies, and we place these students into internships. So we are, so far we have placed, in the last 2 years, we have placed over 60 students. We're on target to place another 50 this year. It's a very small network, and the idea of this pilot is for as an example of something that other universities, other regions do. So I'll be talking quite a bit about that, as well as my own experience in connecting students with industry careers in my breakout group. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm next. So hi, everyone. Sarah Olson, I'm department head at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. And I guess I'm tagged with talking a bit more about internships in my breakout rooms. So in terms of, experiences, we've historically at WPI, a large number of our students have been going on to do internships. In terms of our graduate program, we've kind of built it into the curriculum so they can actually take credits that counts as an internship. So it's kind of a project, and an internship can be very much a part of their program. We have at the undergraduate level, these major qualifying projects, which could be industry sponsored. So we've kind of over the years, not myself, a group of faculty and people at WPI have kind of gotten these connections through our center for through SIMS, our Center for Industrial Math and Statistics at WPI. So we've done a number of things kind of at WPI to try and get internships kind of more integrated and accepted, and a culture of students wanting to do them, figuring out what courses they can take to be complementary, to be successful in their internship experience, and then having them kind of give talks about their experiences at the department when they return. So it gets kind of the next cohort of students interested in those opportunities. Thanks.
All right, and I'm Michael Dorff, professor of mathematics at Brigham Young University, BYU, former department chair and former president of the MAA, and executive director of TPSE right now. So one of the things that I've heard lately in the last several years in the news and higher ed news is that there are more and more either closing of small universities and colleges, or combinations of colleges getting together, or discontinuing of majors. A lot of this that you may hear about may be in the humanities or those types of majors. But what's amazing to me is I'm hearing about institutions that are getting rid of math majors. Last week, there's one in Virginia that I've actually visited called Marymount University in Arlington. They are getting rid of their math major. And when you look into the details about this and you talk to the presidents, what's behind this is there's a budget crunch. So they need to reduce some part of the university's costs. And so the presidents are looking at majors that have low enrollments. There's also looking at majors, some college presidents, like there was one at Goucher in Maryland, where he mentioned the fact that he wanted to get rid of majors where students were not getting jobs. And this president at Goucher said, that's why we're getting rid of the following majors, blah, 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 and mathematics. And I was just like shocked. What? You're getting rid of math because there's no jobs? There is a definite disconnect between what that president was hearing and what's reality. And so my theme is we need to get this message out both to our students so that we have more students who are interested in careers and they know these career opportunities. And we need to get it out to the upper administration so that they don't have this feeling that you can't do anything with mathematics. All right, so that's what I'm going to talk about in my session. And with that, Cassie, I guess we're ready to do the breakout sessions.
Yeah. Go for it. We'll behave.
You don't have to behave.
That's what they tell me.
Or in the interim, you can tell us what type of dance. All types of dance?
It's a dance to fit. It's kind of like Beyonce dancing, just something random I did. It was completely, every now and then I like to do stuff that's completely out of my normal day-to-day life. And it was actually interesting just to see how they think about pedagogy, inviting people in and encouraging people through. It's the same thing that we do in the classroom, but they just do it in the dance hall. It's like a aerobic dance class. So I enjoyed it. My
So
back hurt, but it was fun.
is it intended for workout, conditioning, or is it more for just pleasure?
Is there a difference? Like,
Well,
okay,
it's
I think
slow.
burpees are fun, right? Burpees are fun. So my definition's a little bit different.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Normal people have like normal hobbies. My hobby's exercise. Yeah, pick something, right? But I guess we're all in the room, and I think Scott is recording, if that's okay. And
Yes.
yeah, so this really is a time y'all pick my brain in open conversation sort of thing. So before I start rambling on about things that you don't want to know about, are there questions so I can talk about, or we can talk about things that you all want to know about and ask anything, under the sun?
Actually, let
Where
me
should we start?
start with a question, which I always have
Okay.
as chair. Tell us the
Message.
different ways you go about getting enough industry contacts.
Okay, so the the fake answer would be I go talk with a lot of people, right? The real answer is I use my LinkedIn. So I've actually been able to create a lot of industry contacts off of LinkedIn. And so I got here August of 2020. And I was actually contacted on LinkedIn by somebody from Coca-Cola, I'll say Coca-Cola and SAP. They were like, we want to get in contact with you. I'm like, okay, but they reached out to me over LinkedIn because they see what we were doing, that sort of thing. One thing led to another, and we've been working with them ever since. We've done dinner and data with them, where the students get to talk with professionals. We get to hear from professionals what's happening on the other side, and also networking. We've also set up where they interview with our students, and we've had also virtual sessions too, where they talked about networking, what data science skills are needed, programming languages, all that good stuff. And all of that started off LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of those, has a great search feature. So you can actually search by a keyword. So if you're interested in mathematics or topology or whatever, you can look at that keyword, see if it's in your first connection or maybe one person removed. And you can also look up alums. Alums love to come back to schools, either virtually or in person. And so I found a lot of speakers off of LinkedIn. So that LinkedIn is the real answer about how at least the first step in engaging with industry. And then meeting with people obviously is always the second, either virtually and or in person. Another thing I'll say is that I'm in a different environment. We're kind of making stuff up as we go along. You know, it's like teaching that class for the first time and you're trying to figure out, well, what is this class really going to be? So the Data Science Initiative just moved. We just got a home. It's like a block away from campus. And I'll put a link in the chat there too. It's at the Russell Center. It's the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurship, which is inhabited by a bunch of other fantastic tenants who are Black-owned businesses, either startup entrepreneurs, investors, somebody makes dolls. There's a radio show in the building. So it's in this really kind of neat, techie, innovation, entrepreneurship space. So that's been a fun place to work. And we're looking to leverage that to kind of broaden our relationship, at least with Atlanta-based companies. But in all honesty, LinkedIn, it's a nice way to go to make first connections.
I have a question, Talitha. You said that these students can earn course credit with their internships.
No, that was somebody else, but let's talk.
Oh, sorry, I thought you, okay, I misunderstood. So in your instance, you do try to place students with internships?
Correct, that's right.
But they don't earn credit?
They can earn credit from their respective schools, yeah.
And
they then have to work out a relationship with their school, and yeah, so they can earn course credit with the internships, yes.
Okay. You've answered my question was going to be, how do you decide how many credits and how do you assess the performance? But it's left to the individual schools, I gather.
Yeah, and I think the way at least that we've done these, I almost call it co-teaching, or maybe it's like the industry, whatever, they're the textbook, and then we have like the instructor of record on our side. Way that I find that it kind of works kind of for everybody. If you have an instructor of record at the university or college side who works in collaboration with the industry folks, not only do students get learning out of it, the faculty member also gets some learning out of it, which could be helpful in expanding their either teaching or research portfolio. So in everything that we do, I like to include the faculty somehow. Just because they'll stick around longer than students. Students are, they're supposed to go on and go off and do great things. And any way I can get faculty plugged into that connection between students and industry, I'm always kind of looking for how can we do that? How can we get that done? So I like the idea of these co-teaching. At Morehouse College, Kenneth Gaucher, he just launched his Center for Broadening Participation in Computing. He has had where like he's instructor of record, and then he brings in industry folks through the semester. They're actually tied into the syllabus, into the curriculum sort of thing, as far as, and his topic area is software engineering. But I can see how that's beneficial for math if it's either a project-based course or even a seminar-based course. So, yeah. And Jenna, I think you had your hand up earlier, so I don't want to forget.
Thanks. Scott did ask the same thing I was going to ask, but I guess I did have a follow-up to that. So, I think LinkedIn's a really great place to start. And then when you start to establish these connections, I imagine it takes time to nurture these relationships, to figure out how undergraduates can fit in. Would you recommend, if an institution really wants to take this on, does a faculty need some release time to be able to do this well? Is this something that department can tag team and do, across individuals? I was just curious what you thought might be a best practice here.
That's a good question. I think that also depends on the magnitude of the project. So with some projects, if it's a lot of work, yeah. If it's something that's an add-on or, or an extension to something that's already ongoing and existing, maybe not so much. I will say that, so I'm in a different ecosystem. Typically, if I were to behave, right, and let's assume I'm in a university or college, right? Let's start with this axiomatic approach here. I would actually work or have some sort of relationship with advancement or development.
Right.
Institutional advancement development will talk to the same folks. Typically, at least at our institutions, this is not the same everywhere. If it's private industry, that's advancement. If it's public funding, like government, NIH, NSF, whatever, then that's sponsored research. So that's usually where the line is drawn. Advancement folks typically like to know if you're talking with different industry people, because maybe they have an ask that they want to do on the table, and maybe they could actually fund what you're doing so that you could get a course release, right? Or maybe they could help develop it into a project where, because advancement, those folks are trained into creating these asks to really have these resources to enhance the teaching and learning that happens on the campuses. So there may be an option as well. But I think the faculty member kind of wants, or department should kind of go into it with this is how it would enhance whatever that is, right? And then have some tangible goals and outcomes in mind, because both if and talking with advancement and talking with the industry folks, they'll have what they want, but you're in the trenches, you see what students want and need. And so you want to make sure that that's all balanced out with some deliverables at the end.
Awesome. Thanks.
Any other lurking questions or thoughts?
Also point out to everyone, you can ask Talitha about data science too.
I was actually wondering on that point, how much of the opportunities you have found students are related to their data science experience versus their mathematics experience? Because they don't have to overlap at all, or they can overlap significantly.
That's a good, so when we do data science, it really is across the curriculum. So I'm an applied mathematician by training, dynamical systems, both ordinary partial differential equations. So I always say that means I play well with others, and I do like the applied aspects of math. In this role of data science, it is data science working across all different fields, which is fun, and it also brings different challenges. I will say that there are companies that want data science folks who are either trained in math or in computer science or in engineering, because they want something more technical in nature. And so even if you say, yeah, I'm coming from math and I'm coming into this thing of data science, what are some projects? What are some different data sets? What are some tools? That it can be a fun exploratory field just to kind of see what's out there along with the students. Some of our faculty use a textbook, I'll say in quotes, I'll call it either Coursera or Harvard X. And so they'll, because if you could do flip classroom around that, the way I got into it was I did, first I started with the independent study. I said, I don't know what this stuff is, so let's kind of navigate this together. So I started with the independent study of 1, and then I grew to 2, and then it grew to a topics course, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. So it really was just starting with, I don't know what this stuff is. Yeah, let's go on Coursera, let's grab a course and kind of do this together in a flipped classroom sort of way. But that's kind of how I got into it. But forming industry partners and working with industry, it's really, what's the case? What's the business case? Is there a problem that I'm looking to solve? And then I'm always thinking that when I work with students, what's the deliverable at the end? Sometimes I guess the red tape that we run into is these non-disclosure agreements. So the data or the company's information may have some restrictions on who can access it, how it can be accessed, what can be shared. And I always impress on our industry partners that students need to get a job eventually. So they need to have a story of, I did this project, this is what we did, and it was so cool. And so they need to tell that story moving forward. So I always make sure that when we enter into these non-disclosure agreements, that the students can talk about something. And that does tend to be a challenge when you're at this interface between, students and industry, because people want to keep their stuff private for obvious reasons. But working with all institutions have a lawyer or general counsel, and typically that can be ironed out and done. But if your department or unit hasn't done that yet, it'll be a first endeavor. I will say, I don't know if I'm going to get it in the chat fast enough, but if you look up the name UIDP, that's University Developing Partnerships, that may be something. It's in Nashville in April, and I'll be there, and they actually talk about how do you form these collaborations with industry and what are some best practices and things.
We were talking about this NSF program, National Science Foundation Research Traineeship Program, which I think is division wide, right? I mean, it's in all the divisions. It looks like, yeah. Different directorates, including MPS. It seems like a good initiative. I think it has been around for a while, if I recall, and it looks like a nice funding mechanism if for creating programs or developing programs that expose students to other careers other than academia. So in the previous discussion, there was some questions about how this organization, that the network, that internship network that Rick Laugeson and I put together, does its work. We basically recruit students in within the schools within our networks. In my case, I recruit at University of Maryland, UMBC, Drexel, University of Delaware, Morgan State, George Mason University, and of course my own campus here at Johns Hopkins. Students are recruited, and then we provide training for them. The training is usually on weekends, 4 weekends of training. 2 of them are online, 2 of them are in person, and then we also provide professional training, which are usually given in the middle of the week for an hour or 2 hours at most by a person who specializes in providing career advice for students in my department. Once they have their resume ready, they have already done the training, we pair them up or match them with jobs that we have sort of curated among small businesses. One of the reasons why we're going after small businesses is because we want to put students in internships students in places where that doesn't have an internship program. And in some ways, also small businesses tend to move faster, and so it works a little bit to our advantage to deal with them. Many of the companies that we work with are startups, and they are funded through the government's funding, SBIR funding. And the students do anywhere between 8 to 12-week internship. They are paid $1,000 a week, and their stipend is split between. We provide $5,000 of that stipend to the student. The rest has to come from the industry. So as I mentioned, we're on target to have to place around 65 students this summer.
Fadil, can you say a little more about how you find these small businesses?
So I was mentioning that my collaborator Martin Lacasse has a workflow. What he does is that he scrapes the SBIR announcements, and many government agencies provide SBIR. not only NSF, but also Department of Energy, Department of Defense, Department of Agriculture, and so on. And then from those scraping, he isolates the one that have some relationship with mathematics. He doesn't connect to the ones that are doing wet labs, for example, or animals or plants. And then he, from that, he sends a template letter that says, who we are, and we're interested in placing students in internships in your company. If you're interested in talking to us, here's a place where you can book a half-hour appointment to talk to us. So that's how we do it. I think our return rate is between 8 and 9%. So to get 50 internships, you have to send somewhere around 500-600 letters, maybe more, because some of those conversations do not lead to an internship. Sometimes they say, "Oh, we like what you're doing, but we want to, we're not ready to do anything this year, but we'll talk again next year." So I guess the yield rate of the initial contact is probably about 10%, and out of that, maybe another maybe 6 to 8% would say they would do something with us. The amount of money that we provide is lowers the risk for them to take somebody. So we provide a $5,000 stipend to the student, and they have to provide at least $5,000 to match it. And sometimes if they want to keep the student longer, they would go to $8,000. So we've worked with, I think by now, more than 60, 70 companies. Some of them are now becoming repeat customers. But unfortunately, I think NSF sees this as a pilot project that they would like maybe somehow have its own legs. And I just don't see how it can survive without the government support. We feel like it's not only just this just benefits the students and the companies that participate. It's actually, we're creating some kind of a social good, right? Because we're creating this workforce that is ready for industry, and if when the student wants to do that, and it sort of shortens the time when they have to. A lot of the students that I have worked with in the past have finished their PhD, gotten a postdoc, spent 3 years at a postdoc, then they decided they want to go to industry. So that 3 years could have been shortened when they could be fully productive in a profession.
Let me ask another practical question. So when you're approaching a larger corporation, do you approach the HR office, or where do you start, with engineering, or
So in the large companies, when I was in Minnesota, there were a bunch of big companies nearby, like 3M and Target, and a few others. Honeywell was another one. What we did was we had actually a relationship with them throughout the organization. So when they look for talent, we sort of know who is looking for it, but then they send their HR people to us. So you really have to have a range of relationships with these big companies to be able to place students. Sometimes a scientist in a company gets to know a student, and then they said, I want to bring this student in as an intern or as an employee. Then the HR people will get involved. Sometimes our students directly contact HR, and the student would mention that they know somebody in the company that they might be interested in them, and then the HR brings that resume into that group. So really, you really have to have a relationship with these big companies if you want to keep a pipeline going. those companies. With small companies, it's really fun. With the SBIR, you just scrape the announcement on the web, and the PI's name and contact information and even phone number is available. You can just call them up and say, hey, but what we do is actually email them.
So can I encourage others to ask questions? Fadil has a lot of experience with graduate internships, so we actually have someone captive you can ask questions of.
So I kind of feel like I'm probably in the wrong place because I actually work mostly with our undergraduates and we do not have a PhD program. Do you have experience placing master's students as well, or is this something that's specifically for your PhD students?
So within our, so I should tell you that in my department here at Hopkins, we have a very large professional master's program, and a majority of our master's students do get internships. Something weird that has happened over the pandemic was that they have started accepting remote unpaid internships, which I'm not sure I like, but some of them end up with good projects, and those projects are important for them to talk about in job interviews. So in a way, maybe we're lowering the bar because we're not asking them to pay, but the students are getting an experience that they can actually relate to when they talk to a recruiter. But we do have, I mentioned earlier that because of the size of our master's program, we actually have a full-time person who does career services for us, for our master's students. It is very important because what my predecessor found was that when they send our students to the career services of the central career services, they just don't know how to work with math students. They know how to work with electrical engineers because they know exactly what electrical engineers can do. But with math students, they can do a bunch of different things. So how do you market these kids? So eventually what we decided to do was just hire somebody who is embedded in our culture, and they got to know the students. They know what kind of things they like to do and what kind of stuff they know how to do. So they were able to be a little bit more proactive in marketing these kids.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the information.
Oh yeah, we have 8 seconds.
Okay. So I guess I was just saying a second ago that I didn't have anything prepared. I was hoping we could chat. I can tell you more about what we've been doing at WPI, or if any of you want to brainstorm or kind of discuss things that you're doing at your programs and what we can do to get more students interested in pursuing internships, or potentially how to encourage faculty to encourage their students to do internships, because I know it can be complicated sometimes with PhD students and kind of conflicting with research time versus time for internships.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with one of my questions, right? I mean, graduate students are balancing teaching and research, and somehow they're always behind, right? That, oh, I should have taken the comps last spring, but now I'm taking them in the fall. And so fitting in an internship just seems really, really tough. So I'm really curious how you deal with that.
So yeah, we encourage them to. Sometimes it does mean that they wouldn't get as much research done during the summer, but we try and accommodate if they take an extra semester to finish. The interesting thing at WPI too is that they get their teaching opportunity to teach a solo class only during the summer. So if they want additional teaching experience or an internship, it feeds into the summer. The one good thing is that we have a number of faculty who have collaborators or industry connections where a project is not so disjoint that it could be complementary to the research, potentially gaining extra computing skills or analysis skills or application skills that somehow, it takes away from research time, but it's a skill set that can then help maybe make things go a little bit faster when they do return. But we've had a range of, so I guess our most common internships are generally kind of in first and second and third years. The first year's internships, we have some kind of exams in the first year, and those students who pass them right away generally do well in an internship because it's pre-research. But those that then need the summer to study, then sometimes they're doing their internship if they choose to in the second or third year. But we certainly have a cohort of faculty who are believe that the internship will take up too much time for their student and do not encourage an internship. But as a department, the kind of messaging to the students in terms of the seminar they take and the speakers we're bringing in, trying to bring in industry people for talks to also tell them why it's worthwhile and valuable to do an internship.
Could you speak a little bit about how you got started? I think that that's such a hurdle for most of us. Like, where would I go? How would I find these? I mean, you are WPI, so maybe you're a little
Yeah, I was
more...
going to say, so I get zero credit for anything we're doing. So, you know, we have a history of collaborating with industry, and I mean, we have a career fair. Students can apply at the career fair. I'd say maybe 20% of our student internships are kind of through career, more than 20%, maybe half are through career fair, and then the other half are generally through things that we're encouraging them to apply for or through kind of our network of industry collaborators. But over the years, we created a center, which then allows for kind of additional IP to kind of be dealt with, and the machinery of doing it kind of partially sponsored by WPI, so being housed more through WPI. So that kind of happened a long time ago and has been in the spirit of what we do. But the opportunities and kind of network, it starts small and then it keeps on building. But we, in Massachusetts, we have MathWorks close by, so that ends up being a place where some of our students get full-time jobs after graduating and or do summer work. And then we have a Army Research Labs, a MITRE, but it starts off small. We build the connections, and then we kind of have those people reaching out to us saying, do you have any good students? Please direct them to me. So we also have an actuarial program at the undergrad. So some of the local insurance companies, you know, they just email us every year, who are your best students? Send them my way. So it's a lot of companies who had a phenomenal student and a great experience with one of our students. They seem to come back, and then we can basically place a student or two there every year.
I have a question, Sarah, and for others also who have tried internship. Definitely, I agree that it is a great real life experience. But I'm wondering, for those who have tried it, is it part of a course or a course by itself? And how students' performance was assessed in that case? Thank you.
So for us, students can do it as a summer thing where they're getting paid and it's completely independent of WPI. It could also be as like 0 to 3 credits. In terms of our assessment, we always have for those things that are graded, it is hard to assess. It's highly dependent on what the internship sponsor is looking for. Their skill set. We usually, when it's for credits, then there's a faculty person who's responsible to have, say, 1 hour a meeting a week with the industry or internship sponsor and the student to kind of also get status checks and potentially work with the student offline. But for us, a larger part of it becomes effectively kind of like a pass-fail thing. And we do, after the internship is finished, a seminar talk where they talk about their experiences, and that's pretty much the grade. But I don't know how other institutions do it.
Thank you. Yeah, if others have an experience with that and they like to share, it's appreciated. We don't have internship where I work. We don't have a degree in mathematics, but we have mathematics classes as general education courses. But it would be great to learn about that for those who want to share their experience.
I had a weird experience where I was chairing an engineering department last year as an interim, which you can imagine was somewhat complicated. But one of the interesting parts was I ended up also being the graduate chair, graduate coordinator. And so I was the de facto advisor for all these engineering internships. And they have a really well-organized process. You know, it's a Canvas course and there's early expectations, a meeting with the supervisor where the goals are set, a midterm report, a final report, and then a talk. I thought that was a great model because it also helps scaffold and it can help the student end up not just being the photocopier, right? I mean, so you want to say to the person who's advising the student at the company side, how is this going to be activating some of the mathematics that these students are working on rather than just, you know, doing something more mundane. I found like that was a positive model.
I think students, after they graduate, they forget the courses they took. They talk after graduation about their experience with internship, if they had an internship. It's usually a big thing in their life.
I think Gregory has a question.
Yeah, thanks. So, Sarah, you're describing PhD students that are, you know, they're the interns. So we don't have PhD students, we have like undergrads, master students. Do you think there's any difference between, say, like an undergrad or a master student, like versus a PhD student as an intern?
So I guess, so what Kate was describing with kind of a Canvas site and kind of the reporting and all of that, we have that more at the undergraduate level, but ours are, we call them major qualifying projects, but when they're industry sponsored, there is a clear kind of project outline, and then that one is a little bit more driven by the faculty member, and there's kind of clear project report that needs to be done. So we have it successfully done at the undergraduate level. For example, this year and last year, we've had undergraduate students working in collaboration with, I think it's like an Army research lab, and they've been doing image processing, and they have parachutes, and they're trying to work with GPS coordinates and do some things there. We have a group that's working with DraftKings. I think it's like an online sports betting thing, and there's some kind of statistics and data science. But at WPI, the additional thing is that we usually have interdisciplinary teams working together. So we have quite often in the DraftKings, and we also have kind of Wall Street projects from different banks, but usually there's a math student, maybe a computer science student, maybe a data science student, some variation so that there's a group of students working on these projects. So I think from our experience at the undergraduate level, they've worked great with multiple students who, if you can't do projects at your institution with kind of multiple majors, at least minors or kind of varied skill sets. But things have been very successful with multi-person projects at the undergraduate level, and ours are done, say, over 3 quarters to an entire academic year in the senior year. And it basically counts for a course equivalent in the fall and a course equivalent in the spring, for the most part. So it is definitely possible at the undergraduate level, but we have things in place, like we have a Wall Street Center, but we have faculty that just went down a week ago. They went down to Wall Street, talked to a few banks and different things, and are figuring out the projects that will be sponsored for next year. So they go down every mid-February, talk and kind of get things in place for the next academic year for students to work on.
I'm going to jump in because we have 46 seconds left. What are companies looking for from students, right? Like what skills, for example?
Yeah, computing, quantitative, analytical, soft skills, the ability to present, write up things, quite often computational and quantitative, and a little bit of data science / machine learning is popping into a lot of our projects. And I guess some time series analysis, quite a kind of.
And do these students hire some of these students?
Do these students, sorry?
No, these companies, do they hire the students?
Yes, we do get a decent amount that will then get hired. If they're graduating, some percentage will get hired by that company, yes.
Thank you.
It's interesting because we have a lot of pure math grad students, so they don't necessarily have the computing, but they really want to get it.
I keep on telling everyone, take a numerical analysis class, a scientific computing, some type of data science.
We can either do question and answer, or I can talk. I prefer to do question and answer. So do we have any questions? This is the moment where you can ask.
Sure. What is the best way to avoid being cut in the way you described?
Yeah, okay. So I think that the first thing that would be really good is to make sure that your students are aware of career opportunities. That way, so we did this probably, I would say, we started this maybe between 15, 20 years ago in my department. We had the situation where we had a certain number of majors. We'd go into like our introductory math classes, calculus, and we would see a student and he'd be really good. He or she would be really good in math. And so we would say, why don't you become a math major? And they would say things like, well, I really love math, but I don't want to teach as either a professor or a high school teacher. So I'm going to be an engineer instead. And we were smart enough, or I don't know, experienced enough to say, well, this is what you can do with math. You can be, you can go into data science, you can go into software design, you can go into financial analysts and all this stuff. And what happened after we would say those things is that they would still not go be a math major. So what we did was then we created a seminar that we would do every Thursdays, like at 4 o'clock. And we would invite alumni to come in and talk about how they use math in their career. And so we were able to invite people from like Google, Microsoft, Disney, Goldman Sachs, NSA, Raytheon, Boeing, things like that. And then when we brought those people in and the students actually saw this as an alumni or somebody else who's speaking about using math, that's when we started having a lot more success. And we were able to I don't know the exact figure, but somewhere between 160, we close to doubled the number of majors we had. From that first time to the second time, not quite double, but so by doing that, then there's no way the administration is going to say, oh, look, you don't have that many majors because you do all this. And then the second stuff is we just talk about it. I had to get used to the idea that I needed to have like an elevator speech ready, that if I ever ran across the dean or the provost or the president, I could just say something like, hey, we just had a couple of students who did internships at Google, and they had a great time. And whenever you can talk about the student, then the upper administration really likes that. So I think that's a really good first step. Other questions, or did people have comments of things that they've done?
I have a question about that. Coach Dorf, good to see you.
Hi,
Hey, I was wondering for your seminar, was it targeting those lower division intro math courses more than it was those upper division courses? All right.
Yes, definitely. And this is a really good point. I'm glad you asked that question. Nobody is I don't think anybody's a born speaker, really good presenter. And a lot of times they want to talk about, they want to talk at a level that's much higher than you want them to talk at. So we got to the stage where we were very specific about what we wanted them to say. And we would tell them that we'd want it at the level of students who had not had calculus yet. And so very little theoretical math. Of course, even when you say that, they're still going to do that, some people. But the other thing that we did was we actually gave them a kind of an outline, and we said, we'd like you to talk about, if you were an alumni, your time at the university, that connection, because that builds that connection with the audience, about your company, where you work. Talk a little bit about your company. So that's not going to be not very technical. And then talk a little bit about how you use math, or what you do and how you use math in a level, again, that you don't want it. They don't need to know any calculus to understand this. And then maybe advice that you have for students. What you would tell students to do if you were like looking back at your life, whatever, 10, 20 years ago, what would you want you yourself as a student to know as you prepare for these things? One other thing we did with this too, and each situation, each institution will be different, and your situation could be different, but we always had food afterwards, and we invited the speaker to stay for the food. The speaker knew about that beforehand, and we invited students to come and especially students who were interested in that particular profession to meet with the speaker. And we've usually, the attendance for these events could be anywhere from 100 to 200 people. And then for the food afterwards, we would usually try to get it to be about, maybe 20 people. So it wouldn't be 20 students. So it wouldn't be overwhelming. And by the way, so here's another little tip when we did this. Often I've seen when math departments make advertisements for a speaker, what they do is they take a piece of paper, like this, they write, they have a picture of the speaker, they write the title, the abstract, and then the time. We went ahead and we got, I think it was like 3 by 4 foot posters, and we didn't put the abstract, we just put math and the job, whatever job it was. Oh, so like math and Google, or math and data science. And we would put like a big logo of Google there instead of a picture of the speaker, because no one's going to know who the speaker is unless we get somebody like, okay, if we got Bill Gates, maybe we'd put a picture of Bill Gates up there. Or if we got, Barack Obama, okay, we do that. But no one's going to know the speaker, and no one's going to really read the abstract except for the professors. So just get them there by where they're at and make it a really big sign and then put it somewhere where it's really obvious. We put it down in the main corridor where everybody walks through by the vending machines. And that really gets the word out. So other questions, comments? Ricardo, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Whenever you talk to your speakers, do you pay a fee? How do you get money for food? Just
Yeah, so this is a good topic too. So when we first started doing this, we had no budget. And what we did was we had a homecoming event, and we found out that there was a biostatistician who worked for CDC who was going to come for homecoming because his father was a faculty member, and so we found out through that. So we got him to speak. We see he was going to be here. We had a little bit we could give him for an honorarium, but it was a very small amount. But we didn't have to pay his transportation fees or anything like that. And then we made sure we had lots of students there. And after that, after we knew that we made sure we advertised it really well, we invited the dean to come. And when the dean saw that we had a room filled with 200 people there, he said, wow, this is really great. Deans often have, especially if you're a larger institution, often have some play money that they don't let you know about. He said, we could give you some money if you'd like to do this next year, continue with this. So we used that money to then try to bring in some people from a different segment. Maybe we pay for some of their travel costs and so forth. We found out after doing this for a little bit that if we coordinated it with a career fair, that the speakers would be often recruiting students, so they'd be willing to come and speak. If a presenter was presenting in like computer science seminar or in a physics seminar or an engineering seminar, we could also get him to come and speak in math because he's already there. So that would be low cost. And a lot of these recruiters ended up, they were just paying their own way. As long as they could come and speak, they would be willing to pay their own way. We didn't have to give them an honorarium. We would offer it to them. And then the next stage was we were able to connect this with an NSF grant. And so we got some funding from NSF to do this program for a little bit. Since then, it's just been kind of running with people who've been willing to come and speak, companies that are willing to pay their own way to do that. Okay, yeah, Carmen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Michael. Quick. Some of my questions were already answered. I'm surprised to hear that you had such a large audience there. So I don't know how you attracted the students to attend. When we have like 30 in the audience, I'm like, man, that's a success. But you mentioned 100. But then how do you make it sustainable in terms of the workload of the faculty who is responsible of that? So any suggestions? We don't want it just one semester. We want to use it long term.
Yeah, okay. So so the first thing with getting students there, one of the things that we do, so the classes that I usually teach, we do this in the fall semester. The classes that I teach usually in the fall are large section calculus. So I have a class of 200 calculus students, and I offer them extra credit for coming to this. And the extra credit, of course, is very minimal. It's like it's 0.001% of their grade or whatever, but they hear the word extra credit and they love to come. So that's how we're able to get lots of students. We have faculty who will do that, who are willing to get that. And usually with the freshman classes, there's a good number who are undeclared, don't know what their major is going to be. So I think it's useful for them to do it. Then how does the faculty workload issue? Yeah, that's a bit complicated for me. So I ran this for, I think, the first 6-7 years. And it was just something I did that was part of my service in the department. we now have made it into a course. We have an introduction to being a math major course, and it's now a required course for all students who are going to be math majors. So now we have, that helps also with the population of it because they're going to be in that course. And what the course consists of is during the semester, there's going to be about 8 to 10 speakers that come in and talk for the whole hour. So the instructor for the course is just there to organize the speakers, present the speakers, and take attendance if they want to take attendance, however they want to control the class. So it counts as part of their teaching load now. But it's a one credit course, so the way they get credit is if they do it for 3 years, it counts as a one course reduction over that 3-year period. Other questions? Does anybody else have things that they've done to help increase the number of, or to get the information out about careers? Oh, okay. Mitch.
Yeah, so I've only been here in Madison since the fall, but one thing that we have that is really only feasible for those of us who are at R1s is we have, in the fall, we will have 7 tracks through our math major. So we will have one called Math for Data Science, and we will have one Math for Programming and Computing. So students more clearly see those connected to careers. The question I was going to add, and then we'll have to run to, is how do you do battle with the students who think they need to major in business to get a good job? Because that was the problem we had at the small private I used to be at.
Yeah, so I don't think I'm going to have time to answer that in the next 5 seconds, but I do have an answer for that. So okay, so I'm let's see, I'm expecting, I guess what we're going to do now is, do we still have those breakout rooms? Or Cassie, do you need to make them again?
We do have them, but did that feel like enough time? Should I add a few more minutes to the timer there?
I think that was probably good enough. I mean, we can always use more time, but I think if we end at 1/4 till the top of the hour, then we can just summarize some things and that'd be good.
Great. Okay, I'll recreate those rooms right now.
Oh, I see Mary Crow here. Hi, from NSF.
I came to let people know about Excellent. So if people are looking for funding opportunities, like how are we going to pay the interns? We have a new program at NSF. I put it in the chat. Deadline is in September. You should look us up. Definitely math, data science, a lot of things I think you guys would be eligible for.
It's called Excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah, maybe
I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the chat.
Yeah, maybe after the end of this next breakout group, we'll give you a few minutes and you can talk about it and put it in the chat again.
Oh, 23-507.
Uh-huh.
Fantastic. I'll put it in here.
Yep, perfect. Thanks, Talitha.
Thanks, Mary.
All right, so go ahead and join the breakout room and we'll be back in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Cassie, is it okay if I go?
Nicole, how are you doing?
Not in there. I need to send you things.
Yeah, I was working on it yesterday. I got a little behind. I hope the room conference went well.
I think it did.
And you didn't have bad weather?
We didn't, just a little bit of ice, but the snow that went through Minnesota, Michigan delayed some people.
Okay, so let's see. So what I did last time was answer questions that people have. That seemed to work well. If there's no questions, then I can always just talk, but does anyone have a question?
Well, I was supposed to go to a different breakout room because I thought, well, let's hear what this one has to say as well. So I switched from the previous one, from the undergrad one, if that's okay. So I don't know exactly what has been, talked about, earlier. So, but I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So I don't have a question right now. I'm just here to listen at the moment. Okay, I'm too new at this. I'm about 8 months in, so we'll see.
Okay. Greg, you have a question?
So, Michael, so you mentioned that there's a sort of a, the chopping of math majors and so on. One thing that's going on at our place, and I imagine many other places too, there's sort of great interest in this kind of CS plus X kind of combined majors. And I'm so curious, like institutions that are removing the math major, is it being replaced by some sort of, fashionable kind of like combined major or something? Or it's just removing the math?
Yeah, the information that I've seen in the cases that I've seen, it's usually at smaller institutions. So institutions whose enrollment is between 500 and 1,500 students, and they get rid of the math major. So they still have math professors or instructors teaching math classes and statistics classes, but students no longer major in mathematics and take the full courses. I think at some innovative institutions, they definitely are thinking about new combined types of majors, and you could see the math maybe being absorbed into one of those new types of ones. But I haven't seen, I can't think of any specific examples of where that has happened right now. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, good. All right, next question.
So actually, I have seen this done. We were looking at the curriculum committee yesterday. We were looking at the methods precisely to improve, the math major, to revamp it a little bit so we don't see this drastic decrease. We've already seen sort of a flip between the majors and minors. We still have the same numbers overall added together, but we've had 60% majors and 40% minors, and now it's flipped to the other way around, 60% minors and 40% majors, and that's a very big drop for us, especially since we're a small enough university. So I'm from Chapman University in Orange, California. And we were looking around, and I looked at my alma mater at Vassar University, and I saw that they do have these majors, these combined majors. They have 4 or 5 tracks: mathematics and economics, mathematics and computer science, mathematics and physics, and it's its own major. It's not double majoring. So they take tracks from both and unite them into a single. I don't know how that works, but I still have connections at my alma mater and I can ask. But that's what they have been doing. We were trying a different track. We're trying to talk to the engineering school to come up with ways of easing up people in double majoring, because that's exactly where our majors have gone. They've gone into engineering. Chapman is making a big push towards selecting engineering majors, and that, physics suffered. Physics is on the chopping block. Literally, they had 1 student enrolled this year, and the provost is looking at cutting physics, and who's next. So that's but we were really deeply looking at this. Other ways of improving our math majors, in Orange County we have a lot of high schools, and I didn't actually need to convince my faculty to go and talk. They have taken the initiative themselves, so they are preparing talks and to go to different high schools and talk about, majoring in mathematics, or specifically majoring in mathematics at Chapman, talking about us, talking about the cool things that we do, etc. So I don't have to convince them too much, because they do want to keep the math major alive, and they do want to have good students in the upper division courses. So if they want to teach a topology course or a real analysis course or an algebra course, then they need to actually have, very good students in it. So not much convincing necessary, because everybody wants to teach upper division. So if they want to, they need students.
Yeah, let me take off on that idea that you just said here, because Nicole put in the chat here, how do you get faculty engaged with activities that promote growth in the major? And I think that that's a really good idea, what Michaela just said, of the fact that I was just at University of Nebraska, Omaha, where Nicole is, and there's an issue there where the professors want to teach these upper level math classes, but their enrollments are so low that they're not able to run them as often as they want to. And if you can convince then the professors, the faculty members, that if we increase the number of majors, that means then you'll have a better chance to teach your upper level classes, whether it's an analysis class or a PDE class. And so that, I think, is one way that you can work to try to get to convince and engage faculty in these ideas of trying to recruit majors. Another question that came up at the very end of last session that I wanted to address is the question of students often will come in and they'll come to the university or the college and they'll say, okay, I want to be a business major because I know I can get a really good job with it, or I want to be an engineering major because I know I can do something like that. How do you convince them, or how do you just talk to them about math and majoring in math? So I think in my mind, there's some subtleties here. I don't recommend that you go in and you try to steal majors from other departments. That can cause some bad disharmony. I don't speak through personal experience, but I'm pretty sure that would happen if you would start bad mouthing a major, saying, "Oh, you don't want to go into engineering because you can't get it's because of X, Y, and Z," or something like that. But what I like to tell students is, do you like math? And a lot of the students do. And then you say, well, if you like math, you can also get a great job as a math major. And here are the jobs that are available. And then we talk about what types of jobs are available. You can list them up. I have a talk that I give that lists the different types of careers you can have as a math major. Now, as a math major, the fallacy is for careers, you don't look up the job mathematicians, because that's not usually how they're listed nowadays. They're listed as usually something like an analyst or a scientist or a specialist in something. So you could have words like data analyst, technology analyst, a medical researcher, financial analyst, software engineer. All those careers are perfectly suited for math majors, and there are lots of math majors who have those jobs. So make sure that you get the message out that that's what the career is. It's not, don't go online and do a search for careers, for a job that says we want a mathematician, but look at these jobs that have the words analyst or specialist or researcher or something along, a technician or technologist or something like that in there. And and then tell the students to look through the job qualifications, and you'll notice those are a lot of the things that a math major would already have. And when they go into the job, they can say that they're a math major, but they should also then be prepared to tell the interviewer, the recruiter, why they would want to hire me or the student, whoever, for the job. So for example, when I've talked to recruiters, they say some of the things they really like about math majors are that they're able to, they pay attention to detail. They're very good about detail. Another thing they like is the ability to abstract. They're very good at problem solving. Another skill that we don't usually talk about that I've heard recruiters say is that mathematicians or math students can take a complicated problem, break it up into small pieces, solve the individual small pieces, and then put it back together to get a complete answer. We do that all the time in math classes. I mean, I do that in my calculus classes when students are working on a complicated problem. That's what they do. They take it up, they solve little pieces, and then they put them back together and they get the whole solution. Having students being able to tell the recruiter in a job interview, this is a skill that I'm really good at, you know, and here, and so forth like that. Also, when they go into that situation, not only should they say that they're good at that skill, but they should be able to give an example of how they do that. So, for example, it's not sufficient to just say, I'm great at problem solving skills, but instead to go in and say, I'm really good at problem solving skills. Let me give you an example. When I, last year, I did an undergraduate research project with Professor X here, and this was the situation we had, and we did blah, 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 and so forth like that. And then they go in to tell that story about what they did and how that demonstrates that they're good at problem solving skills. The situation I found is that almost every major at a university says that they're good at problem solving skills. Giving a specific example of that, or an example of taking a complicated problem, breaking it up into small pieces, solving it, and then bringing it together to solve it is really good. So those things are really helpful for the students to know. Now I see there's some questions here. Okay. All right. SIAM has a useful career brochure. SIAM has lots of really useful stuff. By the way, TPSE has, if you go to the TPSE website, there is also a document that we have that's right now it's geared toward graduate students, but we're trying to modify it so it's also adaptable to undergraduate students that talks about resources that are available if a student is interested in getting a non-academic career. And I'm not really good at multitasking right now of trying to find that on the internet while also talking and answering any questions. So I will try to do that when we break out of these sessions. Okay. Any other, we've got 28 seconds, so it's not enough time, but does anyone have any comments they want to add or questions really quickly?
One of the things I usually advise is that students have a minor in something. I assume that's good advice, but I don't actually have any evidence that it's good advice. What are your thoughts?
Yes, so there's a few things that the recruiters have said that are good for students to have: programming skills, soft skills, an experience doing an internship or a undergraduate research project, and having a minor in some other area. So I definitely agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I still have another 20 seconds here. Yeah, so when I talk to people, recruiters, I ask them two questions often. One is, why do you like to hire math students, and what should math students still do? That list I just gave off of programming, coding skills, soft skills, being able to communicate, speak, and write well.
So just quickly, thank you so much, Michael, for the time. I wasn't expecting to say anything, so I appreciate it. Just so you know, NSF has a brand new program called Excellent, EXLENT. It's NSF 23-507. We had a deadline last week, but we were looking for proposals mostly from community and technical colleges. But in a nutshell, this program funds for experiential learning activities to introduce students to emerging and novel technologies. And so math is all over every single one of those emerging and new technologies. And the goal of the program is to provide students with industry or work-based hands-on skill development in partnerships so that they can walk out the door and get a career in the emerging technology field. So We anticipate that the bulk of the funding will go to participant support costs, i.e. paying the students so that they can get paid to do an internship. We'll be doing a wide variety of outreach related to Q&As, webinars, things like that. But right now, if you go to the program page, we have an introductory webinar that we put on way back in December. But I just wanted to bring your guys' attention to it. It's a great program. Oftentimes we hear we would love to get our students to do internships, but we need the funds. Well, NSF listened and we developed a program for that.
And it looks like you might need reviewers. So I'm wondering if they could contact you to be a panel reviewer, potentially.
Yeah, so we are looking for reviewers. Let me find that link and I will put the link in the chat. But I can't talk and search for that at the same time. So give me a minute.
Okay, so I'll take over because I have that same problem too. I can't search and talk. So I will talk while Mary's searching here. I hope everybody found some tidbits in here that were useful. This is not enough time to cover this topic in depth. So we do have recordings of this whole session, and I believe we got recordings of the breakout sessions. So those will be posted on the TPSE website. So you'll be able to go back and look. And if you wanted to go to a separate session that you weren't able to find out what they talked about, you can go to that. I found out in my breakout session, what I talked about the first hour was different than I talked about the second hour, even though I had different groups of people in there. So I think that will also be useful for people. Let's see, I think we're just gonna end, and we might even end a little bit early. The four panelists, if you want to just summarize or have any concluding remarks you want to give, we'll do that. And yeah, let's try that. Talitha.
It was great chatting with everybody and just kind of sharing different ideas about making the career pursuit an academic pursuit, and how do we blend and blur the two, and industry inspired curriculum. I think that would be an interesting topic to explore. Once I stop talking, I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat in case anybody wants to connect, but I really enjoyed being here. If there's something that comes up later, let me know. I'll be around. Thank you.
Fidel.
Okay, hey, hi. Thank you everyone for coming, and we had a lively conversation. Mostly it was about this internship network that I've been working on with Rick Laugeson at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Some of the questions that came up were, how do you connect with companies? What kind of training is important for the students to be prepared for these kinds of internships, and things of that sort. And I hope that I was able to answer some of those questions. If not, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to talk more about it. Thank you.
Hey, Sarah.
So thanks for the good conversations in my sessions. I guess one of the take homes I think that I wanted to share is that, you know, internships don't have to be during the summer, that students are excited to do them during the academic year. It doesn't have to be only graduate. They work really well at the undergraduate level. And that it shouldn't necessarily, if they're kind of have a faculty sponsor to work with, they can be done somewhat remotely. So kind of geography of where your institution is shouldn't be a deal breaker for kind of the types of internships you can kind of help your students to get.
All right, great. And I'll just, I put in the chat, there's the Big Math Network, big standing for business, industry, and government. Check that out. They have also some resources that will help your students. If anybody's interested in anything related to getting the word out, feel free to contact me. Okay, like I said earlier, I'm not really good at talking and writing in the chat at the same time, but you can find my name, my email address pretty easily, Michael Dorf. And we have Susie here too. Susie, you should say something.
So thank you so I'm Suzanne Weeks. I'm the executive director of SIAM. I'm also on the TPSE board of directors, and I'm also faculty in Sarah Olson's department. I still have tenure at WPI. And
a co-director of PIC Math.
Oh, that's right. I'm a founding co-director of PIC Math, and that has been my passion, working in that academia industry space. And I get to continue doing that at SIAM. But I just wanted to thank everybody for making the time to attend and to learn and share with all these topics. And yeah, let us know, let Michael know, let the TPSE board know, let me at SIAM know what we can do to help you. I guess, so are we patenting this blend and blur, Talitha and Kate, I think? So to weave that in, it's something we've done at WPI for years, and we've been doing at PIC Math for fewer years, but to pull that career side into what we're doing and give students that experience all through the year.
Great, thanks, Susie. This is going to probably be a first for me. This is going to be a webinar that's going to end before the hour is up. I could keep talking, but I'm not going to. So thank you very much for coming. Check out the TPSE website and any other sites that were mentioned here. And again, feel free to email us if you have any questions. Thank you very much for showing up. That's it.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.